Okay, I'm going to touch a few items in the laws and customs of Pesach for the day before Pesach, which is on Friday, next Friday. So I'm going to go through all of the listings. So we rise early on Erev Pesach, so we could finish the chametz meal within the time we're allowed to eat chametz. Now, starting from Erev Pesach, which is next Friday, throughout of Pesach, when we daven the weekday davening, after Baruch She'amar, there is the prayer of Mizmor L'Soda or Mizmor L'Toda. That is a thankfulness sacrifice. And this sacrifice was not brought during Pesach, or if the time would go into Pesach, because with the Karban Todah, there were also chametz loaves that was a part of the Karban. And since chametz could not be had on Pesach, so therefore the Karban Todah was not brought. When we say the prayer of Mizmor L'Soda, that is as a part of the Todah sacrifice corresponding to, therefore, since the sacrifice was not brought during the Pesach season, so then we do not say Mizmor L'Soda. So starting from next Friday through out of Chol hamoed, Mizmor L'Soda is omitted.
Wait, where is this?
This is on page 29 of the first section, page 29. Okay, you have to, chametz is eaten until the prescribed time. I believe it is 10:30 something, 10:38. And then an hour later, 10:39, 10:38, 11:38, 39, that's when it's burned. So we could have we have to stop eating chametz by 10:38, and then we have an hour to put away all our chametz items, to tape everything up, to make the final chametz removals. Yes.
Sorry, quick question. So I'm leaving for Pesach, but I live in an apartment, so I share shelves with my roommates. I have my own shelf in our cabinet, but one of my roommates might be there for a couple days of Pesach. And how do I
Do you have your own? Yeah, do you have your own room?
Yes.
Yes, you do. Okay, so include that in your room and say all places that
So
are
bring it
designated
into my room.
to either you tape up that shelf, that's yours. If it's if you can close it off
Yeah.
separately, or you would bring it into your room and then sell
Got it.
contents of
Okay,
your
thank
room.
you.
After the chametz cutoff time, can we eat kidneys and stuff, or you need to eat it?
Once we keep it the same standard. Then the chametz is burned, and then there's the second kol chamira, the nullification of the chametz. So there were two times that the chametz was nullified. One was the night of the searching of the chametz, and those who have an apartment, the searching of the chametz should be done. If it's going to be done the night of Pesach, so you could designate the person who is going to do the searching of the chametz to do it on your behalf as well, to search your area, unless you lock it, unless you close it down. But there's the common area that you're also responsible for. So then the one who is going to stay there over Pesach, you'd ask them to do it on your behalf as well. Wherever you're going to be, if the searching of the chametz has to be done, so then you would be the one who is going to do the bikus chametz. And if you're responsible for the chametz, you would make a blessing. If you're not responsible for it, you would just search without the blessing. But you would also use the candle and all the other, the candle, the feather, the spoon as searching for chametz. So there are two times that's nullified. The first, at the night of the searching of the chametz, we nullify any chametz that we did not find. During the day, we nullify all the chametz, the known and unknown chametz. We don't want to own any chametz whatsoever. And wherever we are going to have, whatever we do have, then we burn that by the burning of the chametz. We check our pockets, what we're going to be to shake out. There's no crumbs. It is a holiday, and we should be careful about our grooming. All those who need to take a haircut, cut the nails. So that should be done in the honor of Pesach. The midday of Erev Pesach was the time that the Korban Pesach was brought. Therefore, it's different than any other midday Erev Shabbos or Jantif, because it's actually a holiday. Therefore, a Jewish person is not allowed to give any haircuts. One is permitted to take a haircut after midday, which over here in New York, it's 1 o'clock. So one could get a haircut by someone who's not, who the hairdresser is not Jewish, but not from a Jewish hairdresser. So they could not give any haircuts after midday.
Is there
So-
any like restrictions on how to go about paying them? Like, do you have to
No.
make that
On
like in
Erev Pesach,
advance?
it's not Erev Pesach. No. Just they cannot give any haircuts after midday. So you have now a week to take care of all the grooming. The cutting of the nails also should be preferably done before midday. If one did not do so, one could cut their nails after midday as well. But since we're learning about it, so it's a reminder. Okay. We do not eat any matzah on Erev Pesach. It's customary that starting from Erev Pesach, the mitzvah items that are on the Seder plate are not eaten if it's particular to have a certain item. So therefore, the maror is not eaten until after the second Seder, which means that those who like to eat horseradish with their fish, so they would refrain from doing so the first 2 days, the first night, the first day of Pesach, and the second night of Pesach, because since the maror is eaten as part of the mitzvah, so refrain from eating it as an ordinary food. Same is also with the ingredients of the charoses, since that is a part of the Seder plate, that is particular to use those ingredients. So we do not eat those ingredients until after the second Seder, which would include the apples. So we will not have applesauce for dessert until after the second Seder. And then also we will not have nuts to eat until after the mitzvah that's done by the second Seder. And so it's only that. However, the ingredients that is used for karpas, since there is no specific vegetable that is designated, so those vegetables you may use for your ordinary meals. And therefore, if one wants to use potato as a side dish for the ordinary food, the same thing is also with onions, all other parsley, any other vegetable item that is used for the karpas is not restricted. There's no restrictions.
A question about a couple minutes ago when you're talking about like selling and searching for helmets. I think we mentioned this in another class, but I don't remember if if we answered it. But let's say like you sell your hummus and then chas v'shalom, like you're very sick, either like leading up, like in the time window between selling it and eating it and burning it, and like, when Pesach comes in, can you like go into your cabinet that you had everything boxed up and like take from it?
Yes, it's a temporary, in other words, even though now it's been rented to the non-Jew, however, doing something temporarily would be acceptable.
Even if it was on Shabbos, like last year it was on Shabbos.
So you would have to know the restrictions of how to open your cabinet. It should not be a Shabbos issue.
You say eating the hummus?
If you have a tummy ache and like you need some bread or crackers to like make your stomach, like if you're very, very sick, everything is sold and you already put it away before Pesach, yeah, but in that like few hour window.
Okay, so that's pretty much on Erev Pesach before sunset. There is a special passage that describes how the Korban Pesach was brought. So this is in the Siddur. You look in the contents. It says Seder Korban Pesach, and that is said after Mincha before sunset. Did you do in other classes the amounts of how much should be eaten? I'm relying that was done in other classes. So you have that in this book. You have the
I remember.
measurement and suggestions for the Seder on page 81. So I'm assuming that this was done with other classes. So I don't want to duplicate this.
We did a little bit with Haggadah.
Okay, so you can make a review on page 81, and this booklet has the instructions of how the size of that which is to be eaten for each mitzvah. Let's go to this booklet. I gave this out yesterday. I have additional copies if anyone wants this copy of the laws of Yom Tov. And, so what could be done on Jantif when it comes to food preparations? So there are two restrictions. Something that is done at a large quantity at a time, which means that since it is forbidden on Jantif to prepare from one day to the other, especially not for the weekdays, so any activity that is usually done in large quantity cannot be done on Jantif in its usual way. Some are not done at all. Some of them could be done with shinui, doing it differently than you would do it during the weekday. Another thing is also that if you were able to do it before Jantif and it is going to be perfectly the same as was done on Jantif itself, so then it should have been done before Jantif. So then we are restricted from doing it on Jantif itself of how it's done. Now, so let's now look at the halacha of borer. Borer is selecting. Yes.
What if it's something that could have been made before Jantif, but you wouldn't have had the space to store it in your fridge or?
If there are circumstances that you couldn't do it, we're speaking about any circumstance that you weren't able to do it before would be taken into consideration.
Including just not having time?
Also. Now on Shabbos, selecting from a mixture, selecting two separate things, one that is wanted, one that is not wanted. So we are restricted from doing that on Shabbos. It could only be done if, it would be permissible if you're going to take the wanted from the unwanted and leave the unwanted behind. Number two, it would have to be done right before you're going to actually use it. And number three, it cannot be done with any special tool. Those are the Shabbos rules. So when it comes to Jantif, anything that could have been done before Jantif, and it would have been just perfectly the same as now, so we would apply the Shabbos rules. You would take what you want when you're ready to use it, and not without a special tool. However, something that is for Jantif itself, it would not have been done. We could not have done it before. So as long as it's going to be used on Jantif itself, then it is permissible. So peeling a banana, you could peel it whenever. You're not restricted peeling it right before you're going to eat it. You cannot peel bananas before Jantif. Therefore, as long as it's going to be used on Jantif, you're not restricted. So
But you can't peel banana on Shabbos?
you peel a banana when you're ready to eat it
Shabbos.
on Shabbos, but on Jantif you could, as long as it's going to be used on Jantif. Now, so let's look on page 65. So the first is if it's done as a part of the course of the preparation of the meal, it's not, you don't get the equal results before Jantif, like peeling vegetables. Vegetables are fresher when they're peeled before use. It's permitted to be done on Jantif itself. And even if it was able to be done before Jantif, but was not available at that time, or the person was too busy to do it, so therefore then it would have the Jantif rules. Now, another rule of borer on Jantif is number 3. It has to be done in the easiest manner possible. So whatever takes less time and less tedious, so that would be the one that you would do. So for instance, if you have the grapes and you have some spoiled grapes, so on Shabbos, you cannot take the spoiled grapes off, but here on Jantif, you are permitted to. Also, that would be the lesser of the effort.
Why is it that you must do the way that's the easiest possible manner? Like
Because
you can't
we don't
even-
want extra toil on Jantif. Because the honor of Jantif, we're trying to do less toil and to leave the time for the enjoyment and pleasure of Jantif. So whatever takes less time, whatever is less tedious, whether it's taking the unwanted from the wanted or the wanted from the unwanted, whatever will be the least effort is the way you're going to go. Number 3, with cutlery, sorting cutlery. So matters which cutlery we're speaking about. If it's the cutlery that was available before Jantif and it wasn't a mixture, so you should have separated it before Jantif. In that case, it will have the Shabbos rules. However, anything that you washed on Jantif itself couldn't have been done before. That's the time to do it. In that case, you're not restricted as far as separating the selection. If you're going to be using for Jantif, you could do it at any time as well. So after the Seder, you washed all the cutlery, you want to put everything away in its proper place. You're not restricted with any rules. You could put them away and separate the selection because it's going to be used for the next day. If, however, something that is, or if it's not something that, if it's something from before Jantif, it would have the Shabbos rules. Now, again, sorting, something that is normally done on a large scale for more than one day, sifting flour, so that cannot be done at Jantif, and anything that tools that are normally used for large scale sorting, like a sieve, so that cannot be used on Jantif. So let's see more. Let's take the next page. Practical application. So as long as it's going to be used for that day, you're not restricted as on Shabbos to do it right before using. Peeling fruit, that is permissible. Straining soup, you could use the cover to strain so the vegetables are left behind. A colander for straining water from noodles may be used because it's a small quantity. Tea bags on Jantif, page 67. So on Shabbos, we have an issue with this tea bags. In addition to cooking, we also have an issue of selecting because we're trying to keep the tea leaves and the liquid separated. So on Shabbos, there are rules of how one could use a tea bag as far as how hot the water could be, as far as not taking out the tea bag from the solution, either taking it out with some of the liquid in a spoon or leaving it in the tea bag in the water with water with the tea bag actually in the water itself, not to extract it. However, on Jantif, we are permitted to do the selecting, we're permitted to do the filtering, and therefore you're not restricted in how to use the tea bag, both as far as, unless it's Shabbos. Again, the first day of a Pesach is Shabbos, all the Shabbos rules apply. Speaking about the weekday, the second day of Pesach, second day of Jantif, so you're not restricted with the tea bags. You could make the water as hot as you wish. You could take out the tea bag whenever you wish, because the rules of selecting as far as the tea bag is concerned does not apply on Jantif. However, when squeezing lemons, again, then the rules of Shabbos do apply even in the weekdays as far as squeezing fruit and vegetables are concerned, as we spoke yesterday, because the basis of prohibition of squeezing fruits is based on grapes and olives, because wine and olive oil was made from the grapes and the olives. And therefore, this was done with a large quantity at a time, So therefore, we do not squeeze fruits or vegetables on Yontif unless the same rules as Shabbos apply, which means you can squeeze it into a food. So we consider the liquid as a food rather than a liquid, and also to enhance something that, for instance, people who like to squeeze lemon on their fish, that would be permissible. It's used as a food item rather than a liquid item. You cannot squeeze the lemons into a liquid. Even if you put it into, when putting it into the salad, it has to go directly from the fruit into the salad and not to go into a spoon or a cup in between, because then you're treating it as a liquid. That cannot be done. As far as cantaloupe, honeydew, melons, all of these, you have the cluster of seeds that are in the center, no restriction of how you take it out, as long as it's going to be eaten, part of it on Jantif, on that day. The same thing's also with watermelon. You can take out the seeds.
On the hamoed days, you can make like lemonade.
Yes, on Chol hamoed.
How would you make lemonade? on
Regular.
Pesach?
Regular.
How would you make lemonade on Pesach? Like,
With-
is there a special way of like peeling the lemon?
No.
Okay.
Now, also an issue that a Shabbos is the bones of fish and chicken and meat. So on Shabbos, we are restricted and not to extract the bones, which are the unwanted from the fish, or taking away the bones from the chicken or meat, or the fats. All of these, we have restrictions on Shabbos. That remains when Shabbos and Jantif come together. However, on Jantif, you're not restricted on what manner you're going to eat your fish. You can take out all the bones, and the same thing is also with the chicken and the meat and the fats. You're not restricted at how you do so. The page 68, washing soiled food. You could wash them even for as long as it's going to be used on Jantif. However, one may not soak the fruits or vegetable in water to separate the dirt. That cannot be done on Jantif. That's considered a weekday activity, and that is forbidden on Jantif. So therefore, you could wash it by the sink. That is permissible. The something fell into your drink. Different authorities, if you could take it out or not, and according to the Alter Rebbe, it is permissible to remove the whatever is in the liquid that you don't like floating around. So if you have some vegetables that are floating around in your soup, or something that isn't the soup that you don't want, you could remove it without taking additional liquid from it. Same thing is also the fats that is attached. Now, selecting on Jantif, this is on page 69, when you have the Sfarim in the shul that are all piled up, in different types of Sfarim, selecting them and putting them back in their proper places on Shabbos is an issue. You could only take what you want when you're ready to use it. However, on Jantif, as long as you're going to use it on Jantif, you could separate all the Sfarim, put them in their proper places. And the same is also with the cutlery that was washed and mixed together on Jantif itself. Also, that could be separated and put away in its proper place, as long as you're going to be using it on Jantif. Any questions? So now you feel free to eat all your foods in any manner that you wish, and taking out what you don't want. If you don't like the onions in your salad, you could remove the onions or the cucumbers or the tomatoes on Jantif, and you don't have to give it to another person next to you if they wanted to make a statement. Who would like to have these vegetables? Or on Shabbos again, you would take a second dish, take whatever you want, leave what you don't want behind. That would be the Shabbos way, but on Jantif, you do it as you wish.
So before there was the use of the sieve, and the first time it showed up, it said, so you don't use that tool because it is commonly used for large scale
Yes.
sorting. what if you're not using it for sorting at all? Because later it says sieve, one may not use a sieve for sorting on Jantif.
So it's not booked, so you could use it as, if you want to store things inside, you can store things inside.
Well, just sometimes like you put only one thing in, but you use it to help spread it out so it doesn't.
As a
like,
spreader, it's fine.
clump.
As a spreader, it's fine. That would be the same as a salt shaker, where the salt shaker, unless it has the other items inside, if it's just the salt, so the reason why we have the perforated top is because we want to spread the salt evenly. Same thing is also going to be with sugar. If you want to spread it evenly, that would be permissible. Now we have, let's go to the next malach. Any questions on this? Okay, let's now page 83, and that is making a dough-like substance. So on Shabbos, we learned that making a dough is malacha blisha, losh. And that is taking fine particles, adding a liquid, a binder, and combining it together. So on Shabbos, it could not be done if it is a thick mixture. If it's actually able to be handled by hand, that is a Torah prohibition. Any thick mixture is forbidden on Shabbos. The permissible way on Shabbos would be if you're making a thin a mixture that is pourable. So you would do it in an unusual way. And two differences as you would do in the weekday. Number one would be in the order that you add the solid and the liquid. If usually in the weekdays you first put in the solid and then you add the liquid, on Shabbos you would first put in the liquid and then they add the solid to it, or vice versa, how it's done, the difference of how it's done in the weekday. And if you don't particularly know what to do, you look at the instructions. If the box has instructions, and whatever the instructions are, you do just the opposite. The second thing would be in the weekday, if you're making a loose batter, a loose mixture, would be in the matter of how you combine the solid and the liquid. That would be the way you stir. You would not stir in a circular motion, which you would normally would do in the weekday, as you take a spoon or whatever utensil you use, you would do it in a circular motion. On Shabbos, you would do it differently, either by doing strokes until it mixes together, or pouring from one vessel to the other, or doing it manually. Again, right nowadays, people would wear gloves and stir it with your hand, which would not be the normal way of how you do it in the weekdays. And we also learned that if something, a liquid and a solid, is going to turn to a solid, you cannot do that on Shabbos. And that would be with our jello, the custards, the instant potatoes. All of these cannot be done on Shabbos. The same thing also would be with oatmeal, that usually if left to stand, it becomes into one clump. So that cannot be done on Shabbos. The same thing is also with the baby cereals. We're restricted, make it more, it should be pourable. However, on Jantif, all of this is permissible. So we're not restricted when making a liquid with a solid in any manner that you wish. So that would include, if you want to make oatmeal on Jantif, you are permitted to do so. If you want to make instant potatoes with a proper hechsher.
Wait, but not on, you can't make.
That's what I'm saying. That's, oh, so it's Jantif. This is a Jantif thing, not a Pesach, not Pesach. We would make the imitation. I thought they have imitation everything. Imitation crackers, imitations. I think that's, but yes, so someone who is, yes, the cakes that are made, you cannot tell the difference. I think it is something that is lost when using all the different items that are used, that usually are chametz, and bringing them into a house on Pesach, I think, is a wrong attitude, because those who are, as far as you see it, Pesach should be different, especially if we're speaking about younger children. Children who are growing up, and they see that they have on Pesach, they have pizza, and they have the crackers, the same that look like the tom-tom crackers or all the other crackers, and all the other ingredients that they're eating, and even though it's all made of potato starch or the almond flour, but as far as growing up and seeing the difference between Pesach and the rest of the year is something that is distorted. And that was one of the reasons why we had also Kitnius was eliminated in this Ashkenazi communities, was because of the distortion of between Pesach and the rest of the year.
I went to school, we can smash like potatoes or things
Yes.
like that. I'm not in Shabbos.
Yeah, not Shabbos.
Can I smash eggs? It's not
Yeah,
Adama, but it's-
yes. So now when it comes to making this egg salad, you want to use a binder, you're not restricted on Jantif. So on Shabbos, we said there was an issue, you have to make bigger pieces. On Jantif, you don't have to make bigger pieces as far as the eggs are concerned. You could use any binder that is kosher Pesach.
I'm not
And
thinking about Shabbos.
So on Shabbos,
can do my eggs.
so the eggs you could, since on Shabbos, the restriction of that's a separate malacha, not lisha, but grinding. So breaking down the eggs to small pieces is permissible because it does not come from the ground. So the grinding is that which comes from the earth. So the eggs do not go into the category, fish does not go into the category, cheese does not go into the category, meat does not go into the category if it's edible as is. But with the binder, so on Shabbos we were restricted because of lisha, because of making a solid with a binder, combining the particles together. So when doing, even though it is, so you could break down the fish as small as you want to, but using a binder when it's going to look like one entity cannot be done on Shabbos. On Jantif, you're not restricted. So in Shabbos, we would make bigger pieces. So if you're using fish or tuna, and you have a binder with it on Shabbos, you would use bigger pieces. The same thing would be with eggs. If you're using a binder, you use bigger pieces. On Jantif, when it's not Shabbos, you're not restricted of how you do so. So let's look at the examples that they give us. Instant potatoes can be made on Jantif. Baby cereal, this is on page 84. So there's no restriction. You can make it thick or loose. The egg and tuna salad could be done with oil and as in a normal manner. And now let's go to bishul, cooking. So on Jantif, even though you're able to cook all your meals before Jantif and refrigerated or put in the freezer, there is no restriction because having fresh food, freshly cooked food, that is something that is tastier and something that we do want for Jantif to be able to celebrate in the proper way. So if something, so we're not restricted with that. That's page 85. However, we can only cook on one day for that day itself. On page 92, cooking extra chicken. So if you're going to do all of it in one time, so it's permissible because it enhances the soup that you're cooking. Anything that more ingredients is going to make better, so it could be done in one time. You are permitted to fill up a tea kettle or an urn with water, even though you're only going to be drinking one glass of water on the first day of Pesach. So again, it would be both days are weekdays, not a Shabbos. That's without Shabbos. So you would be able to fill up an urn that you know that the remainder of the water is going to be used for that night. But the fact that you're filling up the urn at one time, putting it on the fire at one time, and you're going to be drinking from it on the first day of Pesach, since the effort is the same as cooking up, a cup of water or a full urn of water, even though it doesn't change the taste, but the fact that you're doing it at one time and everything is the same, so you could do it at one time. With the soup, you could add all ingredients that you wish because everything makes it more tasty. So you're benefiting on the first day, even though you know that the additional ingredients that you're putting in, the additional pieces of meat, or if you're cooking fish, the additional pieces of fish that you're putting in is going to be used for the second day. So that is permissible. However, if you are making if each piece is made individually, you only make as much as you need for the first day on the first day. This day it's Shabbos, everything has to be done before Shabbos. So here we have making blintzes or latkes or breaded breaded of chicken or making cutlets, all of this can only be made in a quantity that is needed for the first day or that day of Jantif, because an additional effort is done for each piece. The same thing is also making a salad, peeling more vegetables than it is needed. Again, and you know that's going to be used for the second day, cannot be done, only as much as you want to use for the first day. Any questions?
So I might, let's like, sometimes for Shabbos, so I bake a cake for, have for Shabbos.
Mhm,
But the cake never gets eaten
mhm.
all in one day, from my experience. But
Mhm.
I'm not gonna like half the recipe, because I don't know how much cake everyone's gonna eat.
So if it's a
So
chance
can I
that's going
just
to,
make one cake?
yes, if
and
it's a
it'll be
chance that it'll be
fine?
eaten, yes, if the chance it'll be eaten, then you can make it, you know.
Okay. But what if I know it probably won't be finished?
You need to make a better cake so they can.
That was a good one.
I'm sure your cake is
Good.
very
So-
delicious and looks very well.
If more effort is needed,
It's gonna make more effort to make it less because it's one recipe.
if it's the same effort as making the, so they give you over here an example on page 92, they tell you about a kugel. For a kugel, we're peeling each potato separately. That's an additional effort. So there you're making the small kugel, a big kugel, and you're making the big kugel for the second day. So that cannot be done. However, when adding the ingredients for
Like it's hard to
for
add
the
one and
cake,
one
I'm saying,
third
so I'm
egg.
saying, so you're adding the, if it's the same effort that's put in, then that would be fine. But you are,
Maybe I just have to start making smaller cakes.
now,
Just every Shabbos, 95%.
for Chol hamoed, I just, yes,
Can we measure on Jantif? Like if you were to make, I mean, this, we will be making cakes, like if you were to make a cake, can you put, like use a measuring cup, the one?
so as far as measurement is concerned, it is discouraged. If it will spoil because you will not use the proper amount, then you don't want to spoil the food. But if normally people are able to make an estimate and come up pretty close, they should make the estimate. Only if it's something that is going to spoil the food, only then would you use the measure, but because measuring is discouraged on Jantif. Chol hamoed are the weekdays between the first days and the last days of Jantif. So we have that for Pesach, we have that for Sukkos. It is Chol and Moed. We do want to have a festive atmosphere during the whole holiday. So therefore, we do whatever we would able to enhance the weekdays between the first and second days of Pesach. And therefore, we do not take any haircuts because we do want the haircuts to be taken. But when do we want it? Before Pesach. We do want to have cutting of the nails. When should it be done? Before Pesach. We do want clean clothes. We don't leave it for the Chol hamoed. All clothes should be washed that you're going to be using should be washed before. This is something that we are concerned about, that we do not try to diminish the celebration of Pesach during the Chol hamoed. And therefore, also, all activities that could have been done before, that was only delayed for Chol hamoed because you have more time. So take, for instance, someone who has a car, and they want to service the car, and they feel that Chol hamoed, they have a lot of free time. It is not permitted to service the car on Chol hamoed, to do these malachas, because it is taking something that should have been done before the holiday, and now you're using the time that should have been done for celebration with ordinary things. Same thing, a person who is going to have a crew come in to paint their house, you don't let them do it on Chol hamoed. Chol hamoed should be celebrated. If there is something that an emergency comes up, that something becomes ruined on Chol hamoed, then you are permitted to take care of it if you need it for Chol hamoed. For instance, we're speaking back again about the car. If the car needs a repair because it happened during Chol hamoed itself, it was not something that could have been fixed before, or if there's the plumbing job that has to be done not because you chose to leave it for Chol hamoed, but because an emergency came up that you need a plumbing job or electrician, since it is something that could not have been taken care of before, has to be taken care of now, so you're allowed to take care of it now. But anything that could have been taken care of and leaving it specifically because you feel you have extra time on Chol hamoed cannot be done. So the washing of the clothes, that all of that should have been done before. If it's something that you did have a supply, you ran out of this, everything was washed before Jantif, you ran out of the supply, and you needed for the Jantif itself or the Chol hamoed date, then you could wash those particular items. Not to say because you are already washing, doing a wash, why not throw everything in? Only those items that have to be actually washed for Jantif, those could be done. If something was washed, again, we do not do any pressing on Chol hamoed. If, however, something that was washed before Jantif and you had to wash it again, and now you have to fix it up by pressing it. So again, this pressing could not have been done before because it wasn't needed. So now you could do that as well. So all the things that could have been done before cannot do on Chol hamoed, but we try to use the Chol hamoed in a festive way and to celebrate for the holidays. Try to make special foods, try to dress up for Chol hamoed that should be also feel as a holiday. Yes.
So I understand all of that, but it's hard for me to see the practicality in it. Like, for example, like if you don't choose to live in like Crown Heights or somewhere like that, let's say you're going to college and you can barely get the 2 days off and you have to go to classes, or like you're at a job and you can barely get the 2 days
So
off.
then the halacha is that we've had, I think you've had that in the first page. As far as there are 4 categories that could be done on Jantif itself. This is on page 16. Oh, this one doesn't have it over here. Okay, so if it is davar ha'avod, something that's not going to be done in Chol hamoed, it's going to be a loss. You are permitted to do it. That would be with a job or with school. So then you are permitted to do that on Chol hamoed. The same is also with if someone needs the money. So then they are permitted to do the work on Chol hamoed because they need the money for Jantif. The same is also if it's something that's going to be a loss, so you're allowed to do that on Jantif itself. So this is the rules of Chol hamoed. As far as bathing is concerned, we'll leave it. We have the last pages. I put that in also, so you will do that. I don't have time now to do it. I see Rabbi Majeski is waiting for us. So you'll read in the pamphlet we have that I gave out the handout. You'll have the instructions of what to do for the 2 days of Jantif. Yes.
I just have a question that I had at the end of yesterday.
Mhm.
Can we light a fire on one burner from another burner?
Yes, with
Like
with a match, yes. So you may start. So again, as long as there is no ignition, the electrical ignition cannot be used. If we're speaking about the gas stove. So what could be done if you pull out the plug, so the ignition is not going to work, but the gas stove is still going to work. So then you could use the existing fire to start another burner.
And I just have one other one. If that's okay, sorry.
Mhm.
The first, the first bullet on page 16, I don't understand.
Page 16.
Yeah. I think maybe it's the wording that I don't get, but it's something.
Page 16, we have the first, according to Rashi and the Rambam, we can only do those malachs that could not have been done with equal results before Jantif. So the example that we gave is they have cutlery that was mixed before Jantif, should have been done before Jantif. You cannot do that on Jantif itself. To do it in a normal fashion, it would have to be as a Jantif way. Foods that are perfectly the same, there's no benefit whatsoever of doing it at a later time. It has to be done before, unless you do it with in an unusual way.
Like,
The example that they give here is making Jello. Jello does not taste any better when making it on the making fresh Jello rather than Jello that was done before Jantif. That's the same. Yes.
Medical stuff. You like have a doctor's appointment?
Chol hamoed, only if it is something that came up now. So only if it actually is needed because it came up on Jantif itself that you need a doctor appointment. No one should make an appointment Chol hamoed for the dentist or the eye doctor. All of these things are things.
something like really urgent, like.
If it's an urgent, it's fine. Everything that's urgent needs to be taken care of. And if this is the earliest appointment that you were able to get, you try to make an earlier appointment the only time that you were able to make this appointment because the doctor said, I have to make an appointment with the doctor, whatever it is, how many weeks before, whatever it is, something that is urgent that has to be taken care of, should be taken care of. Okay, let me, kosher Pesach Pesach. And, two.
What?
Rayla
Okay.
is like,
I know, I say air.
Okay, let me.
in Yiddish, it's
Okay, Samantha is here,
or like it's like.
and Hannah is here,
Like this.
and okay. So let's see, who else did we meet out? And Maria Rappaport, and that's Rachel. Yes, okay. Glad to see you. Sarah Abigail. Is, yeah.
Okay, like.
Well, very moved, but not.
I'm written into the list.
Sarah Karnblatt. Okay.